Hello, Alexander. Welcome to the CEIS20 Podcast. Thank you for accepting our invitation.
Thanks, nice to be here.
And to begin with, I'll make this brief introduction. So, Alexander Jensenius is a professor of music technology at the University of Oslo, director of the RITMO Centre for Interdisciplinary Studies in Rhythm, Time and Motion, the 4Ms Lab, as well as the recently founded MishMash Centre for AI and Creativity, a national consortium bringing together more than 200 researchers across Norway from academia, industry, and the public sector. His work explores the relationship between music, the human body, and technology, combining methods from musicology, psychology, and engineering. He is intentionally known for pioneering research on music-related body motion, and for later work on human micromotion, including a year-long artistic scientific project focused on standing still every day. More recently, his research investigates the musical and perceptual properties of indoor environments with applications such as improving ventilation systems through sound and motion analysis. Professor Jensenius has published extensively and presented his research at major international conferences in music technology and psychology. His books include the monograph Sound Actions and edited volumes such as Sonic Design and Anime Reader. He has also been recognized as a European Open Data Champion and is active in developing innovative teaching formats, including the online courses, Music Moves, Motion Capture, and Pupillometry. So, to begin with, could you briefly introduce yourself? Who are you, what do you do, and where?
Well, I'm Alexander Jensenius, Professor of Music Technology. I call myself a music researcher and a research musician, and that's because I work between art and science, and I try to also see how I can use both artistic and scientific methods to produce both artistic and scientific results. And through that I also happened to stumble upon a lot of strange things, and I along the way have also then been developing and directing now two research centers, one then called RITMO and another called MishMash, where I try to integrate the art and science components but also really work on bringing people together from different types of disciplines.
So in your TEDx talk, you mentioned that you thought out loud that you want to understand more about the musicality of human life. What does musicality mean to you, and why is it a useful lens for understanding human behavior?
Yeah, that's a good question. But first of all, I think that humans are uniquely musical by nature. And often when people ask me about or say that they cannot sing or they cannot dance or something like that, I think that's the wrong way of saying it. I think everybody can sing, everybody can dance, but we are imposed different types of cultural constraints on ourselves where we don't let ourselves loose. But humans are uniquely musical. We are, by talking and being able to recognize speech, we can recognize melody. By walking and running, etc., we have a rhythmic capacity, and this is something that we bring with us all the time. And unfortunately, you could say adults are not particularly good at this. But if you look at children, by design, they are musical by default. Right? In the way they work, they play, they run around, they move, etc. And you see the musicality through what they're doing. So in a lot of my research, I'm trying now to see how can we explore musicality in non-musical settings. And how can we also use and develop new technologies to allow people to be more musical again? And this is something I really think is fun, and it's adding a kind of a twist to everyday life. For example, in the sense of thinking, how can a boring office, for example, become more musically interesting, and how can it inspire something? By, for example, changing the ventilation system or the way if you can add a sound to the way you open the door and these type of things. This is the way I think that we can add kind of musicality to kind of normal life in a way, and also how music researchers can also engage with non-musical topics.
The 4MS Lab Your lab is named after music, mind, motion, and machines. How do these 4 dimensions interact in your research? And you talked a little bit about it. And why is it important to keep them together rather than treating them as separate domains?
Well, I've already spoken a bit about the music side of things, but if you think about the mind and motion, my approach is very much within a framework called embodied music cognition, where we think that mind and body are really connected. It's impossible to think about a mind without thinking about the body, and the other way around. And this used to be a radical conceptual framework, but I wouldn't say it's mainstream still, but we have a lot of now empirical evidence showing that mind and body are indeed connected. The challenge then for us as researchers is to try to continue to find more evidence supporting this claim, and that's why I've also been interested in exploring, for example, people standing still. Because if you try to not move at all and you hear music and then that actually makes you move more, that is also kind of part of an empirical evidence supporting that there is a connection there between what you hear, how your brain processes that, and also how your body responds to it. So this is one side of it, and this is of how we explore these type of things in the Forums lab. We study musicians, we study people moving to music, we study people standing still to music. We also increasingly studying not only music but also sound and other types of things as well. Again, pointing back to the idea that musicality can be seen in other things than only purely music. So that's for those parts. And then the final word, the machines. This is something that is coming in everything we're doing. I'm thinking about all sorts of technological systems as machines. And we're using them to analyze different types of music, mind and bodies. But we are also developing new machines. And I think that's an interesting thing, working on the intersection of psychology and technology, is that we can use technology to understand more about psychology, but we can also use psychology to develop and understand more about technology. So again, I like to think of not separating terms into different categories, but trying to think of how can they connect, and also how can you also get into these type of iterative loops where they support each other. And that's really what we're trying to do in the Forums lab, where we're really trying to see how can people, both from art and science, but also from these other different disciplines, really work together.
So we are talking about these intersections between musicology, psychology, technology, and artistic practices. And from your experience, what are the main challenges and rewards of conducting this radical interdisciplinary research?
Well, first of all, there are many challenges, and but those challenges are mainly imposed on us, I think, structurally, because our institutions, like universities, are typically set up to make silos between these institutions. We are typically live in different departments or faculties. We have different organizational structures. We have different reward systems, with different publication cultures, different methods, etc. So there are lots of challenges. But there are also lots and lots of rewards if you are able to break across those boundaries and able to collaborate, because then you will really see that you can achieve much more than you would be able to do alone. And at RITMO, we have really seen this in practice, where we have been able to put together teams that can work across these different disciplines and really be able to answer questions and carry out data collections and analyzing material in ways that would be impossible if you worked alone. And some of the large-scale projects that we have been working on now in recent years, for example, working with full symphony orchestras, collecting data from all the orchestra members, but also thousands of audience members, and being able to understand what's actually happening in such a complicated space where you have social bonding activities going on, and you have all sorts of entrainment things happening, and of course music as being kind of a center point of all of these things. But it's really about trying to understand humans and how humans are, and trying to figure out what's happening and how can we drive also technology better for humanity. But then that requires also that you're really able to work across the different disciplines in a meaningful way.
And our last question looks at the future. We hope it is bright. And regarding the new MishMash Centre, you are tackling AI across art making, education, health, cultural heritage. What excites you most about what lies ahead? And what do you think we need to be careful about?
Well, there are certainly many things to be careful about when it comes to AI, and I think we have been exposed to them now in recent years if you have been testing some of the commercial products. At the moment, there is a problem that some large-scale technology companies have kind of stolen, you could say, a lot of material, literally, trained big models, and now are giving them for free back to people, although we are part of the training as we are using these tools right now, and I guess the cost will rise very soon. So there are certainly many problems there when it comes to copyright, privacy. There are ethical issues, there are legal issues, and we need to really understand what these are and how they change us as well. So that's the negative side of things. But I also think that to be able to tackle those problems, we need to understand the problems. We need to articulate the problems. We need also, I think, as researchers, to have empirical evidence supporting why there are problems, but also to come up with new solutions for how can these things be improved. So I really think that we need to be forward-leaning, and we need to take ownership of this, of AI development. We need to regulate AI. We need to handle copyright issues and problems. We then need to define, okay, how can we work with these things? And we need to develop systems. We need to educate people. We need to really work on this across the board. And that's what we're going to do in MishMash, which is this large Norwegian collaboration, really united everyone, you could say, in Norway here, generously funded by the Norwegian Research Council. And really, it's really about scaling up in the way that we're doing. It's really through that, I think, that we are able to not necessarily solve the problem, but at least be able to work towards solving the problem and also build a bigger basis in Norway, but also in Europe, to be able to handle the future of AI.
Alexander, thank you so much for this conversation. I hope maybe in a year or so we are here talking about some findings and some implications of the MishMash. I'm sure it will be a wonderful project. Thank you once again, and I think that's all.
Thank you.